Kualitonali Nawit Metzalmazad. Beautiful energy to your crown. My name is Moondeer. My American name is Ezra. And I'm going to share with you a Coast Salish legend. So, when we share legends, each of us has a specific legend that is gifted to us by our elders. And when we experience these legends, they have different variations, they have different origins, but they have a similar principle behind them. And so I'm going to share one of my favorites, and yeah, I'm really excited. So if you're seeing this, you would have already seen the animated GIF that I created of Raven and the Four Directions. So I just want to provide some context to this story and do it in a way that is specific to how I was told from different people. So I also have added some information on the original NFT that has some more information about the four directions and how I work with them. So I'm not going to include any of the angel energy in this story since it did not originate with the story itself. So in the beginning, there was no sun, there was no moon, there was no light. Um, no one no one in the world was able to tell if it was day or night, and so there was a king or ruler at the time that was said to hold a very sacred treasure. And they kept this treasure locked up inside of a box. It was like a pine box. And so many people were fascinated by this treasure, but no one could explain what it was. So Raven, at the time, was covered in white, luminous feathers. They were just the most beautiful creature that people experienced. And because Raven was luminous and white, they reflected light of the stars when they flew across the sky. And so Raven had the ability to transform. And he came up with a plan. They came up with a plan. I'm not going to say here her Raven is Raven. So they came up with a plan, and their plan was to transform themselves into a pine needle, and they would place themselves in a stream of water so that the daughter of the ruler could then drink him up and take him to the ruler to then steal the treasure. So Raven went through with this. He transformed himself. Again, we're going to use some neutral pronouns. They transformed themselves into a pine needle, and sure enough, the daughter of the ruler drank him up, drank them up. um, so after they were inside of the daughter's body, they began to grow, began to um, come back to their original size, and then the daughter basically gave birth to Raven. And they raised Raven as if they were a part of their own family. So Raven knew that they had to stay disguised in order to get close enough to the ruler to see what was in this pine box. So years passed, and one day Raven snuck into the ruler's quarters and opened the box, and inside they saw the most beautiful objects. They were luminous, they were glowing, they were bright and blinding. And they were caught. So they took the box with everything in it and flew out and escaped the ruler that just had their most valuable treasure stolen. So Raven took the box and released everything inside of it. And when they released everything from this pine box, the sun came out and turned everything into day. The moon came out and graced the sky at night, and stars filled the sky even more. And it was beautiful. They were sharing this treasure with the world, with everything. And they didn't think that someone should have all of these beautiful things to themselves. And by releasing the sun, the moon, and the stars into the sky, they gave everyone light and life and something to look at in the middle of the night besides distant stars. But unfortunately, Raven was captured, and to deal with his thievery, really, they decided to throw Raven into a giant fire, and Raven's feathers burned. They turned black and soot and ash, and Raven survived. They were an immortal being. They were, they were huge, and now their beautiful, luminous feathers were burned and singed and destroyed. So Raven needed to find a way to heal themselves, to transmute this energy, to transmute the darkness that they had become. And so one day, Raven decided to fly over the sun. And when they flew over the sun, all of the feathers on their body transformed back to this luminous white and glistening magnificence. It was beautiful. It was amazing. They were themselves again. And when they did this, they released the four directions. They appeared to Raven, and he used this sacred medicine to transform and transmute at at free will, or whenever they desired. They could shift to and from their form of being beautiful and magnificent to ordinary and blending in with the other blackbirds. And so Raven released not only the sun and the moon and the stars, they released the four directions. They delivered medicine to the people to change and transform themselves and to protect themselves. So I love this story so much. There are many different variations of the story depending on where you are told the story. So if you're up north, say in British Columbia, the story there is going to be different than if you're in Alaska, or when you're here in Washington State. The story is going to be different depending on the family. But my favorite part of the story was the ability to shapeshift between something beautiful and magnificent to something ordinary, something that people would look over, and it protected them. It protected Raven from being completely destroyed. And when I think about this story, I think about my own journey, and when I felt small, when I felt like I needed permission to be myself. And I think of this story and I remember that I don't need permission. Sometimes there's survival that kicks in when we have to protect ourselves, but that doesn't have to be all the time. So I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope you share your version of this story if you have one. And I hope that you took something away from this. So, raven is a symbol of healers. And when I worked with this symbol before, I felt like there was a really deep connection with this spirit because they lived in darkness, but there was light in them the whole time. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope that you enjoy the NFT. And yeah, I didn't really have any type of prerogative with this project. Something just told me, like, you need to do this. And then when I created the outlines, I started seeing the winds moving around Raven before I even painted them. And so to see this moving, to see it animated, it's to me it's huge. um, there will be some more editions of this, and I do want to create um, more stories and more animation. And something that's bugging me is that I didn't take the time to get the wings animated, but that'll be another project for another time. For me, the most important part of this NFT is the winds. Mostly because I actually work with the winds with Archangel Energy, and it's the winds that create change. It's the winds that protect and cleanse and unveil mysteries. And they do so many different things, and it's foundational. So, as the first piece of this collection, I am happy to share the Ascendant version of Raven with you. So, Tlazokomati, thank you, and Shimaponoti, you are always welcome.